You know what? I'm going to throw the pop shield across the room now.
So, by the way, Alex, meet Hakan.
Yeah, it's nice to finally meet you, man.
Yes, same here. I've been a big admirer and watching your attaché shows, and so it's great to meet in person.
How's the rain in LA?
Yeah, you guys are really having it as bad as we are.
Yeah, I know. Then the Bay Area is crazy up there. They've had more rain than they've had in 150 years or something in a matter of 1 month. So,
yeah, I was listening to to NPR, my California Bay Area NPR feed this afternoon, and they were saying that New Year's Day was the second wettest day on record.
Oh, I believe
in the Bay Area.
Yeah, I was telling Paul I was thinking about investing in a canoe, around here, so just to get around.
Well, it always seems to be a mixed blessing in California. You need it, and then
it's feast or famine, and then as Paul said, we're going to have the fires come summer. So when everything turns dry,
you'll have the water to extinguish the fire. I know that's not a joke. Sorry, guys. Sorry. Let me pull the first sound that we usually do. Oh no, of course it's not. I have a new crew of cleaning ladies, and they're amazing because they're actually cleaning my old desk, but they moved all the buttons every time, so I'm like on silent.
I just want to tell you both good luck. We're all counting on you.
Oh, there you go. First of all, guys, we have a guest. So Alex said at the very end of. Well, I'll do that again at the very beginning of the last episode of last year, our annual guest. So we decided to have a guest to start with this year. So it's done, right, Alex?
Yeah. I think I said I'll see you in... I did say annual guest, and I think I said we'll see you in 3 years. But either way, I'm wrong, which is nice.
Who do we have with us, Alex? I'll let you introduce... you can first, let's say, his Twitter handle. Because
I was going to say, I think I should introduce him by his Twitter handle, LA Flyer, who has... hit us with some knowledge basically since this show's inception.
Yeah.
All of these wonderful additions to the things, the corrections, the sort of the very, very valuable actuallys that we regurgitate on the show as if we came up with them ourselves. But you introduce yourself. I want you to tell everybody your actual name and how we came across each other, the three of us.
Well, thank you very much for the introduction there. My name's Hakan. I live out here in Los Angeles, so hence the handle LA Flyer. Been a big podcast listener from, I think, episode number 1, and amazingly, for whatever reason, whenever you guys will find out that I do a lot of traveling, and for whatever reason, when I ended up being in Tokyo, walking around Tokyo, your podcast feed would pop up that you guys had a new episode. For some reason, it was like uncanny. Month after month, when I was for some reason on a business trip to Tokyo, you guys would pop up, and you guys be like my little companion on my travels across Asia, particularly.
Oh, wow.
So, and over time, we've conversed and through tweets and stuff like that, and I enjoyed to get to know you guys.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, you're a superstar.
Yeah, you are a superstar. And as you know, because I mentioned you, I met you for the first time. Was it November, was it? You were in London.
Correct. I was in November with the family on a vacation.
So I know that you have a lot of stories, so it will be a fun podcast. Obviously, I need to say first the date. We're recording this on January the 12th. Oh, wow. It's exactly a month after the last one we recorded. January the 12th, 2023. Happy New Year, everyone. Happy New Year, guys. I hope that Santa Claus was nice with you all. This won't be, obviously, like last time, this won't be a release immediately. First, because I'm going to be slight edits if need be, but also to leave some room for the previous episode to breathe. So probably in a week or so, probably around the 20th. By the time you listen to this, you will know, but know that it's recorded on the 12th. I need to play the music for our friend Gen. Can I? Happy New Year again. So before we go into more proceedings, have you flown Southwest in the past few weeks?
Have you flown at all in the last 48 hours?
That's true.
What happened? What happened with the FAA? Do you know?
From what I hear, it was some sort of software update or some sort of update an engineer was doing a few days ago and replaced some file, and that was the end of it. Wrong file in some database and corrupted everything. So it took them quite a while to figure that one out. But that's
crazy.
I mean, it's kind of crazy that something so simple can take down the aviation system in a country.
Is it restored today, the 12th, or is it?
We're back to normal, but I'm sure there's probably a few residual delays of, who knows, crews and aircraft maybe being out of place, because yesterday they had a huge amount of cancellations.
And for those who don't know, the reason I mentioned Southwest is because they had a huge meltdown during the holidays, like a massive one. So I hope you didn't fly them, or I mean, you might have wanted to fly them, but you couldn't. But that was another. I don't know what happened either there, because I actually didn't look it up. But that was also quite something.
Yeah, it was bad. They had again, listening to the same feed I was listening to about the fires. They had Leslie Joseph. I don't know if you guys know. She's the CNBC's aviation correspondent. She's phenomenal on Twitter, and I can't remember her Twitter. Maybe it's just at Leslie Joseph. But she was kind of dissecting or post-morteming this NOTAMs issue, and no one that she spoke to could recall. And these were pilots in their decades-long career, other than 9/11, when the entire U.S. airspace was shut down, primarily for takeoffs, because I think landings they could get planes that were already in the air down, but everything else for 90 minutes, there was nothing. And it was a 1950s system that the primary database was corrupted, and then the backup database was based off the corrupted primary database.
Oh, no way.
So that's not
and
good.
I don't know if you guys saw, but right afterwards, Canada had a little outage also yesterday.
Oh, no, I didn't see that.
For about 30 minutes or something, they put a notice out that they're having some issues also, and everyone's like, oh, no, it can't be two places at once. So but, Canada resolved it super, super fast. So it was unrelated, but it was just coincidental.
On a similar note, in the Philippines, so Manila, the entire system, the entire operation system of the Philippines that is based in Manila near Naya, the main airport, shut down on the 1st of January. Apparently, there was a power cut, but the generator that was supposed to do the UPS basically didn't work. And that locked the entire country down for like 3 or 4 days. Like there were flights coming, I don't know, from Tokyo, etc., that had to like 6 hours in, go back, because it was literally nothing they could do. Very different circumstances, but not really fun if you're on the 1st of January trying to go to see family.
That's bad.
By the way, talking about that, I hope this doesn't happen today. Talking about a UPS, I actually bought a UPS, which is not connected now, which is very stupid of me. Maybe that's what they did at Naya. Because I had a power cut on the 24th of December. Thank God it got resolved before Christmas Eve. And then I had another power cut on the 31st of December, the evening. So there was a candle-lit start of the festivities with friends and beers. And so that was fun. And then I had 2 days ago for like exactly a minute this time. So that was really not really a power cut. However, obviously, if a power cut happens tonight, the entire feed goes down and I'm losing you. And of course, the recording doesn't happen. So I bought the UPS, but it arrived literally an hour before the recording, so I couldn't actually charge the battery in it. So let's just pray to the gods of electricity that we don't have a power cut and that this podcast can happen. We'll see in about an hour and a half. So let's go back to you, Hakan. Can you tell us a little bit about your history? Because this is how we started actually discussing when we met in London. And I was immediately fascinated because you have so many stories. I think we could do like 4 hours on just the stories of you, but let's maybe to some context, tell us what you do now and where it all started.
Well, we can maybe start just a little bit of background. My parents, like you, are international. My mom is Swedish, my dad is Turkish, and due to their careers...
That's very similar to me, man.
Exactly.
Just one country off.
One country off, exactly. Very, very close. So we're brothers in our own, and who knows. But anyhow... So as a little child, we did a lot of traveling, and I was that little boy that always loved airplanes, and I always asked to go to the cockpit. I asked my parents if we can go to the airport a couple hours early just to stand there and watch airplanes. And one of my dad's dear friends was also a travel agent, so on the weekends I used to actually like to go hang out at his travel agency and just thumb through airline brochures and check out, collect timetables. So it was kind of preordained that I was going to do something with aviation, and that kind of led me into my career. When I was in high school, actually, I got very lucky. Alex, you probably know, here in the U.S. we have it's called it was called at the time. It was like a work study program, regional occupation program, I believe it was called, at least in the 1980s. And what it basically was, you got to get the afternoon off a couple days a week in high school, and you get to go work at some company or some place for credit. So, and by luck, that year they had openings at American Airlines at LAX. So I got myself the position at American Airlines, and when I was over there, I was assigned to work in their flight ops office, kind of underneath the terminal, where the pilots would come in and collect their paperwork. They'd do all the gate assignments for their flights, and I mean, it was like it wasn't even a job to me. It was like heaven. I could kind of sleep there overnight if I needed to, but obviously it was limited to, I think it was 16 hours a week you could do maximum. So I'd max out my 16 hours, and that kind of opened the door. But unfortunately, when I graduated American Airlines, they said, well, we'll happily hire you as an employee, but you got to start in passenger services or ramp, being a union shop. And I mean, you're welcome to come back to operations, but who knows how long that might be. That might be 1 or 2 years, or it might be 10 years. It's all based on seniority and who wants to bid in there. So I didn't pursue that, which was fine. I mean, I was going to go off to university anyway, so it might have been a little bit challenge trying to do everything at once. By chance, I started university here in Los Angeles. By chance, one of my dad's friends, who was executive at Procter & Gamble in Europe, ended up getting a job as the chairman of Turkish Airlines. And at that time, Turkey had a prime minister who was wanted to privatize companies. He was very commercially minded. He wanted to open up the country. So he brought in a lot of new executives to a lot of state enterprises, which Turkish Airlines was at the time. I believe they had about 30 airplanes, and their CEOs traditionally had been like ex-Air Force generals, or, kind of the typical setup. And so my dad had mentioned, hey, next time you're on vacation in Turkey, stop by and see and just say hi to him. And since you love aviation, who knows where it might go. So as promised, that summer I happened to drop in Istanbul, and I met him. And within maybe like 30 minutes, we kind of hit it off, because he had a very big, he most of his career had been overseas. So he had a very Western business mind, and obviously me educated overseas. We just hit it off, and what I didn't know at the time was Turkish Airlines at the time was about to contract in Scandinavian Airlines to come in and assist them with kind of a business overhaul. And I guess in the back of his mind, he knew that I also had my Swedish side, so it could serve some value. So he encouraged me. He says, "Hey, why don't you stay here and work with us?" Of course, mother's side of me was, well, I got university in the U.S. I got to finish that. So, well, somehow we made it work, and he brought me in as I was almost like an executive assistant to him. And I kind of got carte blanche to go around the company to different departments. I was piggybacking with this SAS team, which was looking at a lot of everything from flight ops to reservation systems. So I got to put my hands in a lot of different departments across the company.
Wait, so just so I'm clear, your first gig, not even out of university, but out of high school, was shadowing the head of Turkish Airlines.
Yeah, it was kind of amazing. That's true, but it was also crazy, because I was in Istanbul for like a month at a time, and then I had to come back to the U.S. and try to go to school a little bit, and back and forth. Yeah, I mean, it was nuts for a while, but we got it done, and probably in a short amount of time, I focused with this SS team. I was able to focus in basically on 2 areas, and the most exciting things we were able to do there is focus in on one. They had an OCC and Ops Control Center, and I mean, it was still very paper-based. I mean, they still had 1960s, 1970s things. I remember like aircraft scheduling was being done on this like big paper matrix sheets and stuff like that.
Wow.
There were the old teletypes with, I don't know if you remember those old telexes where it's like, spits out like these confetti strings type of things. I mean, they had this old technology. And one of the big things that SS hit on was, yes, this might have worked in the 60s and 70s when you had 20 airplanes, but now we're heading towards the 90s. So we got to get new technology in there. So one of the projects I was able to work on was being involved with the modernization of that. And then the other very exciting thing was their network planning. I get to work with SS, brought in a network planning team and hub management team. And at that time, during the 80s, SAS was, a really high quality airline. It's not necessarily a small player like it is, let's say, in Europe today. It was really well known, and they had a super efficient Copenhagen hub. And the way it worked is because flights would come in, it would be very tightly packed, and they were one of the first ones that did this hub and spoke model in Europe.
Oh.
And at the time, Turkish Airlines, let's say, I'll give you an example. Turkish Airlines used to fly to Paris every single day, but the flight on, let's say, Mondays and Thursdays might be at 9 a.m. The flight on Wednesdays and Saturdays was at 2 p.m., and nothing kind of matched. Everything was a little bit, haphazard, and it went back to the days of, hey, we have one extra 727. Where do we want to send it today? Well, there's a lot of demand in Paris, so next season on Wednesday, let's add an extra flight. Oh, we have the spot at 3 p.m., so okay, we'll throw it in there. There was really not a lot of planning, so you didn't get connection flows, and if you happen to connect and the flights happen to connect, great, but there's not a lot of planning in it. So now with a much more commercially minded team there, and with the help of SS, they were able to redesign the schedules. So basically, they created the first hub wave banks. I mean, it was really small at that time. They had maybe 30 odd airplanes, but the idea was, European departures would leave in the morning, they'd come back in the afternoon. You'd have the Middle Eastern stuff to the Levant and the Arabian Gulf, leaving in the afternoon or the evening. So you get this synergistic flow back and forth. So I mean, that was fun, and basically I did that for almost 2 years. And at the time, a lot of things were happening at Turkish Airlines. I mean, they launched a brand campaign, created a new livery. They launched new long-haul routes. They got their first A310-300, so they started flying to Tokyo and New York. They introduced business class. They created their first frequent flyer program. So a lot of things was happening under the CEO. And he was there for only 4 or 5 years. But I stayed there for about 2 years, and then I said, well, I have to come back and I have to finish my university. As much fun as this is, I'll still be around if you guys need me in a couple of years. So I mean, I came back to Los Angeles. And then while I was going to school here in Los Angeles, one day I happened to see an ad for a company that's dear to your heart, Virgin Atlantic. They were never heard of them. They had started service to Los Angeles, I guess, the summer of 1990, and they were looking for duty managers. They had, the one flight to Gatwick. So I applied, and next thing I know, I got the job. So I became a duty manager at Virgin Atlantic, LAX. I very quickly realized that I'd rather deal with the back end of the operation than the front end of the operation with the passengers. And of course, Virgin being, having the Virgin music group and stuff like that. I mean, we had tons of celebrities and, tons of stories I could tell you there. I mean, tons of things happened. But before you know it, about a year and a half into the job, Virgin, who's had a cargo division, opened their own cargo warehouse at LAX. So I kind of transferred over. Let me talk to boxes instead of passengers. That was a little bit more fun. So I continued over there for a couple more years. And of course, this time, you'll probably know in the early 90s, it was a tough time at Virgin because, the Gulf War I had started and ended, which, created the run up in oil prices. It was in the midst of that dirty tricks campaign that BA was playing against them. Of course, Virgin didn't really quite know what was going on at the time. It came out later, and I mean, Branson sued him, and I think he got the biggest libel award in UK history at the time against BA. So, I mean, a lot of things were going on there. But again, it was, basically you're waiting on one flight in and one flight out every day. So it wasn't that exciting, especially after what I'd done at American and Turkish. And obviously, LAX might have tens of thousands of employees, but it's a little bit of a small community. So over time, I got to know people. And one of the companies I got to know the managers and the owners of a ground handling vendor at LAX. And they encouraged me to come over. And of course, they were handling something like, 20 international airlines. So I'm like, oh, well, this will be a lot of fun. So I went over and I took over their flight ops department, the folks that did the turnaround coordinators and the weight and balance team. And I mean, that was a hell of a lot of fun because, now we're chasing after 20 airlines. And I mean, that's kind of the first time I learned that 20 airlines might operate the same airplane, but boy, their procedures are so different. I mean, one airline chocks, puts the wheels on the chocks one way, the other one does something else. I mean, it's, we're such a common industry, but it's so different.
I was just going to say that, ground handling is an interesting thing because it's you have, like you said, I was so interested to hear you refer to it as a vendor. I never thought of it like that, but that's exactly what it is. It's for all of these airlines that have one flight a day, and it doesn't make economic sense to have their own ground handling operation there, but somebody's got to do it. So companies like the one that you're describing exist to fill that need. And I just think that must have been, I mean, that's the world my father lived in still. But going out and, as you say, if you got to do one airline with this and that airplane and this, and it must have been fantastic.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it was a great experience. And during this time too, I'm always looking to do like the next thing. So I ended up getting an FAA dispatcher's license.
No way.
Yeah. So
when was that? Which year? Roughly?
That was in the mid 90s.
And so tell us, for those who don't know, what is that license? Why do you do it? And is it hard to get? I have no idea for that. The last question, I have no idea.
No problem. Well, the dispatcher here in the U.S. is the operational control of an airplane resides between the captain. The authority for it resides between the captain and the dispatcher. And the dispatcher usually works in the airline headquarters, prepares a flight plan, looks at the weather, figures out how much fuel you need. And also, while the aircraft is en route, can remain in communications with the crew to give them a heads up if something's going on, or if the crew has any issues, they contact them. The test, it's changed since then, but back when I took it in the 90s, it was had two parts. Had a practical part where you sit down in front of an FAA inspector, and they literally grill you on different subjects, whether it's meteorology, aircraft performance. We had to create a paper flight plan by hand, using old, with wind corrections. I think my flight plan, it was based on a 737, and I believe it was Oakland to LAX or something. So it was a relatively short, but we had to, figure out the airway routings, and we, those days, you got there was no such thing as an iPad where you just look up stuff. It was all paper charts and manual calculations. Wow. And then I believe there is also a written test, which was multiple choice. I believe if somebody can correct me, I'm sure. I think it was about 100 questions or so, and you had to score, I believe, about 80% on that. And then you get your flight dispatcher license. So it's an FAA license that stays with you. And it allows you to go work at the airlines. Obviously, every airline, if they hire you as a flight dispatcher, they also have their own ground school. So they teach you the company procedures and the company specifics. So
how long a process was that to get your dispatch and then get up to speed with an airline?
I went to school. I had to go to school for it. I want to say it was about 3 months. Wow. And then also there was like a weekend crash course to kind of like help you teach the test to you, the written test. And then you go and you took the written test at the end of that weekend, and then you waited for a date for a FAA examiner to come in and do the practical for you. Wow. So it wasn't it's not easy. It's digging into books, and the problem. I don't want to say it's a problem, but a lot of the stuff was written back in the U.S. Aviation is guided by the Federal Aviation Regulations, and a lot of these were written back in the 1940s and the 1950s. So a lot of it hasn't been amended, but you still have to learn a lot of this material, which might never necessarily be used in today's operation, but you have to know these rules and regulations inside out.
Of course.
And then, as I said, I'm always looking for the next thing. So, I did about 5-6 years at this ground handler. It was super fun, but got to see how the business is done by 20 different airlines. Next thing I know is Polar Air Cargo down in Long Beach. They were looking for a manager of flight operations control. So it's basically overseeing crew scheduling, dispatch, and
you decided to keep going on the talking to boxes.
Exactly, that's right. So transitioned over to Polar, and it was really good. The only problem is September 11th happened, and then shortly afterward, or actually I think about the same time, Atlas Air purchased Polar Air Cargo. So in about a year after that, the job transitioned to New York, and that was if I wanted to stay employed, we had to commute to New York. So I was able to work one week in New York on duty as the OCC manager, and then 1 week off back here in Los Angeles. So, but that was a cross country commute. So you can imagine.
I assumed that you were just going to say, "So I went somewhere else." I'm impressed that you had. had the wherewithal to do that cross-country commute.
Did you accrue a lot of miles then, obviously?
Well, sometimes we'd be able to jump seat, but during peak periods and especially going into my shift, since I knew I had to be on duty at a certain day or a certain time also, sometimes I'd end up buying one-way tickets on American or United, or JetBlue had just started out of Long Beach, so sometimes I'd end up buying some tickets just to make sure that I got to work. Of course, commuting in and out of New York, summer or winter, can be difficult, whether it's the snow in the winter or the thunderstorms in the summer. So, I've gotten diverted to landed in places like Syracuse or Baltimore. And, each of those commutes were eventful for sure, a lot of them. Though, luckily enough, after about 2-3 years of doing that, I was able to slip into a new role over at Atlas as a manager of flight operations, which gave me a lot more flexibility. And I was able to focus on like special projects such as fuel conservation, technology, and some financial analysis work. But during this period, I was with my 1 week off. Remember, I used to work 1 week on and 1 week off. I would often be contacted by friends at other airlines or industry groups to help them out with projects that they had on the side. So it's kind of like opened the door to consultancy. And over time, these side projects became larger and larger in scope and pay. And then next thing we know, the 2008-2009 financial crisis hits, and Atlas was looking to cut costs. So basically, I took a bunch of cash and a bunch of stock and decided to pursue consulting full time. Now, I was very lucky that one of my companies that I'd been dealing with, a big IT vendor, pretty much was willing to fund me for 2 years or guarantee about 2 years worth of business for me. So I was able to cover my salary for the most part, so it wasn't going to be a huge leap.
Wouldn't that be something great as consultants, right, Alex?
Yeah.
And since then, you've been doing that. Then.
Yeah, I've been doing full-time consulting. Basically, the practice we focus on airline operations, management, and security. The areas that probably generate the biggest workload and income are a lot of IT projects at airlines, because they're always looking to save and automate where they can. And also providing management support to smaller companies that, for instance, can't justify a position, whether it be like a safety manager or quality assurance auditing, and also stay busy in the regulatory arena, whether it's manual writing or helping stuff with filings with government authorities. So, clients have been everything from airports to airlines to IT vendors to service providers. And I've also been lucky. I've sat on a couple of work groups, some industry groups like IATA. So it's, I find it super interesting, kind of going back to my ground handling days, of seeing the inside of so many different companies and how we all operate in the same industry, but, we come at it we have such different ways of doing it sometimes. So it's, we're all trying to solve the same problem, but it's done very differently at different airlines, and I really enjoy being able to watch that and be part of it.
So now also we understand, Alex and I, how and why you've been able to give us sometimes insights that we were looking at each other like, how does he know all this?
It's really funny you say that, Paul, because I was thinking in the intro or in the early stages of this episode, like, this was the guy that you'd get a DM and I'm like, man, this guy knows his stuff. Like, he's taking us to school, and now we know why.
Exactly. Finally, we know why. You never wanted to. I say that I know the answer, but you never wanted to not talk to boxes anymore. I keep using that analogy of yours, but as in, is it still a passion to talk to boxes?
No, I mean, I'm comfortable doing what I'm doing. I mean, I as far as going to something with passenger service, I mean, I'm a bit of an introvert too, so I'm not sure I'm made out to be the front facing person. I like definitely the back end of the operation, whether it's technology or corporate and stuff like that. So the boxes suited me.
Obviously, because a lot of people have understood that over the years of you interacting with us and either Alex or I mentioning you. For that work, you've been traveling quite a lot. We took at least pre-COVID. You were really traveling a lot, right?
Absolutely. I mean, prior to COVID, I was doing about 200,000 miles a year.
Holy crap.
I was top lead on both American and United. I used to travel at least, 1, if not 2 weeks a month. used to do these epic trips, being Los Angeles based, and a lot of my focus was Asia Pacific. So I used to do these, epic trips to Asia, whether it's Japan, Hong Kong, Singapore, Malaysia. Hit 4 cities in 4 or 5 days and come back and forth. And I remember in 3 weeks I did like 2 Australia trips and 1 New Zealand trip. So I used to rack up the miles, but that was pre-COVID. It's changed since then a bit.
Why American and United? Was it just because he was depending on the routes, or was it because you couldn't decide between?
Well, being Los Angeles based, they were kind of the biggest carriers here. So those are the alliances here in the U.S. I wouldn't actually, if I could fly a partner, let's say like Cathay Pacific or ANA, I would. I didn't necessarily always fly American or United. It's just those were at least the programs that I was part of, being part of the the Star Alliance and One World Alliance, which were the 2 big carriers at Los Angeles at the time that had good international networks.
The Star Alliance lounge at the international terminal. I'm talking the last time in LA was when I saw you, Alex, there, which was when
2019.
That lounge, Star Alliance, I think is actually Star Alliance Lounge. On the, what's the name of the international terminal again?
Yeah, the Tom Bradley International Terminal.
Yeah, that lounge is pretty cool, actually.
Oh, absolutely. So
I don't know if it still exists, however.
It's still there.
So did you have a favorite?
As carriers, probably my 2 or 3 favorite airlines would be, I'd say currently would be Qatar, Cathay, if they ever come back to their size and shape and network that they had. They have I used to love their lounges in Hong Kong, and sometimes even if I'd go to Japan from LA, I could route my way out of the way. Fly a few extra hours to route via Hong Kong, even sometimes.
Oh my God, you're a glutton for punishment.
And then ANA is up there too. So, in many ways, I'd go out. I wouldn't go out of my way, but if I could avoid some of the U.S. carriers, I would. I'd find the service and the food and, it's the overall ambiance on some of these foreign carriers to be, superior. And also with clients footing the bill, I've found that sometimes, in many cases, these foreign carriers were actually cheaper than, what the U.S. carriers were selling on the same route. So
yeah, I can definitely believe that.
Did you, because you were early on in your life a duty manager, were you judging? Are you still judgy when you are in an airport or in an aircraft? Just as a passenger going for your work or even holidays, are you, and I'm not saying judgy in a like condescending or negative way, but will you be, because I'm sure, Alex obviously does as well in a certain way, because he's, even if he was not a duty manager, we all do, but you have this background, so you might understand things that we don't.
I think that's natural. It's in many ways I know the way things are supposed to be done, or how what the idea was or the concept behind something. So when I see somebody, whether they're in a uniform and they look very sloppy. I look back at my Virgin days. Before the agents went out to the ticket counter, it was almost like a uniform inspection. You got to make sure that the agents, their hair was right and the tie was up correctly, and so when I see employees that just look sloppy at the airport, I notice that. Or when on board with the food delivery, sometimes the food could be awful itself, but the service of how it's supposed to be delivered, I don't go out of my way and complain about it or anything like that. It's just, it is what it is, but I do notice it. So having the insight from knowing how it's supposed to be done, and when you see it's not done, it kind of rings a bell, or you notice it.
I was thinking something, but I don't think I'm going to say it.
Oh, because you wanted to judge, actually.
No, I think you're absolutely right. But the thing you said about the service, in many cases trumping the quality of the I guess we'll call it the hard product, and be it food or seat or anything, I think is something that's so lost on a lot of the U.S. airlines, and why I'm like you. If I have the choice between going through, on a not U.S. airline, actually, and BA, we'll just, we might as well kick BA in this episode too. I will, because I think even if the food is exactly the same and the hard product is exactly the same, that culture of service delivery is going to make the experience that much better.
I will add, before you answer, Akan, I will add sometimes for me simply the willingness. It doesn't have to be good. It doesn't have to be perfect. Even sometimes it's not good. It can be even average. But if they're trying their best, that's good enough for me. Maybe I have low standards, I don't know. But what I hate the most, and you mentioned SAS, and SAS had this one flight. I think I've overused that example, so I'm going to stop because it's not SAS bashing. I felt really, it's just, they didn't want to do it. And that's for me the worst part of when you're in a flight. It doesn't matter which class you are or whatever. When you feel that the entire crew doesn't want to do it, maybe if it's one person or two, you say maybe they're having a bad day, which all of us have, but we're just sitting in front of our computer, so nobody sees that. But sometimes, man.
I mean, you can have the best heart product in the world, but if the service and the service delivery is not there, and I mean, details matter, and maybe I'm spoiled too, but my wife, she comes from, her background was in the hospitality business, and she's worked for luxury hotels, and, she definitely understands of how, appearances matter and how you got to greet guests and how you got to have the presence and service delivery for them. And it really does matter between one brand to another brand. And I mean, you could have the best seat in the world, but if they just throw your plate at you, it kind of casually, nonchalantly, I mean, that you realize that as a customer and you take that away.
Well, you still flew United. I'm sorry. Ooh, la la, what did I just no, I had to. United. I know we have a lot of people from United. So every time I comment about United, I'm going to get emails. But by chance, since it's not going out today, this podcast, I have a week to prepare myself for the comments that will come. No, United, you're better than you used to be. Honestly, that's an honest. Actually, it's not because I want to avoid the criticism. So did you, where you were flying? You said jump seat. So we were flying in cargo flights, or were you flying in passenger flights?
We rarely had cargo flights that actually went between LA and New York, so usually it was passenger airlines. And
did you get to fly some cool planes then? I mean, to be in the jump seat in the cockpit of something really fun.
Well, I hate to tell you, but usually the jump seats in the cockpits are not that comfortable. I rather have. Often, what happens is, I mean, the cockpit jump seat is actually given to you usually as a last resort. The gate agents will often they'll give you a seat assignment in the cabin somewhere, and then if the seats are not available, then you ask the captain, you can usually have access to one of the two jump seats on board. But usually, sitting in the cockpit, it's a little cramped. It's not that much room to stretch out. Plus, you kind of got to be on your best behavior and can't be falling over, snoring, or anything like that. So,
yeah, probably not nearly as fun on a transcon as it would be on a little hop up to the Bay Area or Vegas or Phoenix or something like that.
That's true. And usually I'd be commuting right back after I'd finished my last day of working, after working about 7 days. So basically, I was tired. I just want to, take a seat in the back and pass out for a little bit.
Wow. I just keep thinking about the 200,000 miles. I don't, Paul, what's your record year? Do you know?
No, I exceeded that, but not like as regularly as you did, because you were really. I mean, some of the routings you were telling us about before the pandemic, where I was like, what does he do? Is he a spy? I mean, not that friends of ours, Alex and I, also used to tell us the same. Like, are you a spy? Because your travels make no sense, but. Yeah, some of the stuff you were doing was we discussed when we met. I had a few stories like you when 4 cities in 4 days in Asia and coming back to Europe. For you would be coming back to LA, but you did it, I guess. Well, I'm sure more regularly than I did.
Well, one of the things to keep in mind too. I mean, it sounds like a lot of miles, but LA to Hong Kong, I believe, is about 7,000 miles. So round trips, that's 15,000 miles. So I mean, the miles add up fast when you're doing these long hauls. So it's not like I'm jumping all around the U.S. with taking 50 legs to rack up, only 20,000 miles, a lot of short hops. So being long hauls, a couple long hauls, you get a lot of mileage.
But it's true that if you live on the West Coast in the US, it's often the case that you end up actually flying, even if you just do a transcon, and you will rack up miles. It's the same for friends of mine, and myself included, when I used to live in Japan, because anything is basically far. Right, it's not Europe. Going to New York is next door, but that's the equivalent of a transcon, and you're already seemingly on the other side of the world. It's not the case, but you know what I mean. Like, it feels like a completely from the West Coast. I mean, you're going to either what is Tokyo is closer, and then on the other side you come to London, but that's 14 hours or something. So there you go.
Yeah,
you do a lot of miles.
Yeah, I mean, London's, 10 hours in one direction, and then you got Tokyo 10 hours in the other direction.
That's why we should live, Alex, not for the rain you currently have, but just for the miles.
Yeah.
Because by definition, we would have more miles. It's just a very. Did you keep all those? Because I know, yeah, we should say, because for the listeners, you haven't traveled for work a lot since COVID. I mean, we're still during COVID. I mean, we're, for the ease of conversation, let's say post-COVID, you haven't restarted really traveling a lot.
No, it's totally changed. Obviously, I got back. My last trip was February of 2020 before the shutdown. I was in Australia, got back. Didn't fly the rest of 2020. Didn't fly at all in 2021. And last year, I've taken, I believe, about 3 flights for work. Actually, all 3 were domestic and 2 leisure trips. So I've barely flown at all since the pandemic, if you want to.
How does that feel?
I was always in this go, go, go mode. So, I mean, initially, probably in 2020, I was having withdrawals and, kind of being cooped up at home and kids not going to school and everything like that. So I kind of wanted to get out. But now I think we've adjusted. I've adjusted in so many ways. It's kind of nice to be in your own bed every single day. When you do take a trip, you kind of look forward to it. It's not as mundane as before. True. And in some ways, I mean, being at the airport, I mean, I'm still at the airport a lot for my work. I think travel has changed. It's just become seemingly, airlines, everybody's been having all these staffing issues, whether it's the hotels, whether it's the airline, whether it's the airport vendors. It's just been more of a hassle. There have been a lot of cutbacks on board the aircraft and service levels. So I don't know if travel is as fun as it was before. Sure, I miss a lot of the destinations. I'm dying to get back to Japan and, or hawker food in Singapore and stuff like that. But, work just hasn't taken me there. And I think over the pandemic, we've learned how to work differently. And a lot of my clients, they just don't even want me to travel and come see them anymore. I mean, nothing personal, but I think they realize that we can accomplish so much online. And, if they're going to bring me out to Asia, it's between 5 days of my expenses plus travel and hotels and everything like that. One trip might be, 10 grand plus for them. Well, we can accomplish a lot of it online for a fraction. The 3 trips that I did take this year, one of them was basically almost a client emergency, so I had to leave within a couple of days. I mean, that's understandable. The other 2 trips they had an important meeting with the regulator, so I had to be there for that. Yeah. And the other one was, kind of just a regular meeting that I would have done in the past. But 90% of the work now is pretty much done online collaboratively. And I have an interesting story that one of the companies I do a little bit work for, they have a account manager, and he used to travel 2 weeks a month. He's overseas, so he's in the Asia Pacific region. He used to travel 2 weeks a month, just traveling around country to country, city to city to see all of his clients. And he was lucky if he can get to each client about once a quarter. Now what he does is every single Monday and Tuesday, he gets on the phone with every single one of his clients. He's able to talk to all of his clients on a weekly basis. Instead of seeing them 4 times a year, he's able to basically see them 50 times a year. The communication is better. The feedback's better. The personal relationships are better because now if the client has an issue or whatever, they're more open to talking about it, or they give them weekly updates instead of trying to save something for 3 months later. And then, by that time, it's become blown up to be a big disaster. So,
But you're not in a plane.
That's true. I mean, there's a lot to be said for personal connections and being there in person and stuff like that. I mean, no doubt about it. But I think a lot of it can be done remotely. And
I can see it, honestly, frankly, because I have the same. A lot of my work is also consulting. Stage for me was always number 2. Where by definition now it's basically back. I still do a lot of online presentations for APAC, but for the rest it's basically back. But the consulting, some clients I haven't seen since 2019 now. So that's really bordering on, it will come to 4 years at some point. They're still a dwindling thing if I don't go to see them or if they don't invite me. There's still, I think, value to at some point catch up and have a beer or not have a beer if they don't drink. I don't care. But you know what I mean is there's still something to be said because I can feel the relationship is solid, but there's no kind of rejuvenation of it, where it used to be like every X amount of time we would kind of not only catch up, but then we would go out for food, or like in a hawker in Singapore. And then suddenly, you create a new memory together, which kind of creates something to say online for the next 6, 8, 12 months, right? So I think I'm not, of course, we're an aviation podcast, I'm going to say that. But at the same time, it's really hard to also, I keep talking, sorry, but you probably also experienced that, and Alex certainly did. It's really hard to create new relationships, new clients when you're just doing online. You have to kind of meet people. And for all of them, I hate networking, and I really hate networking. At the end of the day, being in other cities and being introduced by a client to another, or just friends and something, I cannot replicate that online. I just can't.
You just want your freaking flyer miles, Paul.
No, I agree, but I think it's a lot of. I mean, I spoke to speaking to a CFO at a company, and of course, the CFOs are super excited because they realize, hey, we can still do all this work with and generate all this revenue without so much travel.
We don't
expense.
have to pay anymore. Yeah, I know.
But I think it's going to come down. I mean, I think already on the West Coast, we're hearing cutbacks with technology companies, entertainment companies, all looking to cut their travel costs. But I think maybe 60, 70% of what previously was done in person can be done remotely. And then you do travel out for those big meetings, or, some conferences to meet new clients, or, that 30, 40% is travel while the rest is remote.
No, I know. And I fully agree with you. Of course, I need to find a justification for travel. I need, especially my clients who hear this podcast and me telling me, come on, guys, please invite me again. I'm enough of that Zoom thing. Because I need to fly. We both, by the way, we because we said it last time, and that's going to my next question, since we're talking just about geeking out in aircrafts. Alex, you're losing your statuses in a few days.
Yeah, in
right?
2 weeks somehow I lose both BA and Virgin Gold.
Same for me. I mean, for me, the date of renewal was slightly different, but I basically make the executive decision by myself. Yeah, about myself, whatever. It's not executive, that I would become a free agent as well, because I was trying. I was still having this lingering thing in the back of my head in 2019 mode, where like, I need to fly that route so I can maybe have enough points and tiers to actually. And I said, you know what? No way. I gave up. I mean, also I will lose BA. I will lose Lufthansa. The only one that I won't lose is Emirates, because Emirates is literally the only airline that decided to, hey, here's gold for another year for free. So I'm like, oh, wow, thank you. Which is why actually I chose them to fly my next flight. Not my next, the one in February, because they were so nice to me. See, sometimes actually loyalty works. Right?
Yeah. What
about you, Hakan? Are you losing? Because it's 2023 is the year we're all going to lose our status, I guess.
Well, it's similar over here. I am lucky, though, because I did have so much travel in the beginning for so many years, for 10 plus years, that I've racked up what they call like million mile status or lifetime status. So both with nice. American and United, like with United, I end up with the equivalent of Star Gold. And American, cool. I forget what the equivalent is with One World.
Emerald, I think.
Yeah, it's one exactly. So I do have lifetime status. So I used to have a lot of hotel statuses. Those are going away too, because I'm not staying in hotels anymore that much. So, but yeah, we're all falling off that treadmill and that sugar-induced or mileage-induced highs that we used to have.
Yeah, but you said it earlier. Go, 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 go. There was a little bit of that. But yeah, it's still kind of the other day when I sent actually a WhatsApp to my dear Alex and said, F it, I'm giving up, I'm a free agent now, because that hurdle in my head was still there. Like, no, maybe there's a way, like, in the front of a big, like the same tips, similar type of big sheet of paper you just explained earlier, but just trying to find a way to have all the miles in the right way for the redemptions at the right time. No way. There's just no way. There's just no way. And I wished, but no.
In some ways, it's liberating, because what I found now, it's with my family trips, taking the family on vacations. Now I'm not necessarily automatically going, I have to see what Star products or what Star has or what One World has. Now I can look at where we're trying to go, what the good fares are, what the good product is, what the good timing is, and I try to kind of match the best of all the requirements. And being a free agent, we can do that. We're not loyal to, or we're not subservient, or being held hostage by one company or another anymore. So that is, I guess, nice.
I think it's huge. I don't think I'm there yet, but at least emotionally, intellectually, absolutely, I know that this is silly, and the benefits are absolutely not worth it, especially on BA. And we talk a lot about BA on this podcast, and I'm not dunking on them at all, but I'm just that sense of being a free agent, as Paul said, and the kind of liberation of being able to go on fair, and also not just unfair, but I've never flown those guys, or I never get to fly on a 350, or I never get to blah, 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 blah. So now I can. And I've got a few, my trip up to, where the hell did I go? Oslo on Norse. I'm like, I would have been blind to that as an option on Google Flights if I had known that this wasn't going to happen. And now I'm like, yeah, you know what? Why not?
Yeah, why not?
Well, the benefits I don't think are worth it anymore. And as Ed said in the last episode, the airlines I don't think care massively about our loyalty. They care about how much revenue. I think that Venn diagram overlap is very small between kind of loyalty, value, and revenue.
Do you agree with that statement that airlines do not care as much as loyalty as they used to, if they ever did?
Well, I think we could see it. A lot of the loyalty programs have shifted from, mileage based to earnings or revenue based. So definitely the airlines are looking at the value of a customer based on the income that you bring them. There we have it. I think that kind of summarizes it.
It's kind of distressing, really, because I think the Southeast Asian carriers, and then I guess in a way the ME3, because so much of their in-flight culture, at least, or their service culture, came from those carriers. They were the ones that pioneered this sense of loyalty based on service. You choose to fly them because the experience is good, and also they go where you want to go, and also the price is fine. The U.S. and I'm painting with broad strokes here, but the U.S. airlines were the ones that understood the quantification and commodification of that loyalty with tier points and frequent flyer miles. So.
And credit cards.
And credit cards. And it became a sort of, you chose your alliance early on in the US, and there was very little value in switching or not using them, even if the service degraded, because you might get upgraded.
Absolutely. And then one of the things also is, if everybody's elite, nobody's an elite.
Oh my God.
I remember, 20 years ago when
you said that last time, Alex. Yeah, exactly.
When I started being top level elite, the employees would literally go above and beyond for you. You felt like you were a little special, even if, just, hi, here's your, giving you something, welcoming you by your name. I guess you guys have spoken about that in the past, as I recall. Little touches mattered. Now everybody's an elite. So I was at the gate. I was walking by a gate at, there was a Delta flight at the terminal, and they had something like 100 folks on the upgrade list. Well, the airplane only holds like 150 folks. How can you have 100 folks on the upgrade list? Everybody's some sort of level of elite. So once everybody is able to, gamify the system, and the airlines have to devalue a lot of the benefits to such a great degree, there's, good question, is it worth it anymore? And I think more and more people are like us, doubting the value that we derive from it.
Yeah, unless you're a massive spender, either because of corporate or because you're very wealthy, because then if you're really a massive spender, at some point you get a private jet, I guess. But otherwise, you're right. Too much elite kills elite. And we've been discussing that even in the past with BA here in London, because obviously there's so many people having some status that you'd be like right in the middle. And I'm probably exaggerating. Alex and I were probably not in the middle, probably actually in the back of when you have like massive banks and, that they have like huge contracts. So for BA, obviously, Paul and Alex or Hakan are not, they're nice to have and they're very happy. I've never gotten an upgrade in my life with BA. And this is not BA bashing. I just get it. It's an economical. And I think what you said, Alex, is very, very right. I would include, however, with the ME3, and that's something I don't know how comfortable or not you're about talking about Turkish nowadays, but I think Turkish has been doing a smart strategy. Of course, that predates COVID clearly, but to try to basically be another of the ME4, I mean, ME3, ME2, because now Etihad is nowhere to be seen anymore. I don't know. But they are really, here in Europe, you can see they're doing massive investments still in the aircraft and the product, especially the hard product, and of course the new Istanbul. So they are trying to play that game in between the making money, but also offering a much better service. Maybe influenced, of course, by the likes of Emirates and Qatar. But do you still fly with them?
Yes. Well, it's been a couple of years. I haven't been back to Turkey since pre-COVID, but if I go, I'll definitely probably hop on them. They got 2 flights a day out of Los Angeles, so I mean, you can't beat the convenience. And I mean, yeah, they're part of Star Alliance, but I'm not necessarily looking at it from a mileage point of view. It's more convenience. But no, I mean, they've done a phenomenal job. I mean, as I said, from when I was back there, that 30, 40 airplanes. Now they're this year, it was a press release. They're going to receive their 400th airplane, new airport.
Wow.
Serving, I guess, more destinations than any other airline globally.
They're the number one, I think. Yeah.
You know, they're adding more and more destinations. They're densifying the network, so create even more hub waves, connecting waves. So I mean, they're making money. I mean, they're had more than $1 billion profit. So it's not like they're giving it away for free.
Wow. And during the pandemic, actually, they kept being strong. I mean, Qatar was probably the number one airline in terms of passenger traffic during the pandemic, at least internationally. But Turkish was not far behind. They really kept pushing no matter what. And the product, and probably Hakan, you've heard it, the product a few years ago was a bit all over the place, but it's starting to be more consistent now because obviously they upgraded all the aircrafts. This feeling was also enhanced by the old Istanbul airport, where sometimes the connection made absolutely no sense in terms of the layout of the airport. Now with this brand new airport and having a better hard product on the aircrafts, and it also is really recognizable because they have this special drink at the start, the lemon-based, I think, drink, whatever. They have the chef, that probably a crew that dresses up as a chef, but still, it's something that you don't see in any other airline. And they have the kebab, which is freaking good, actually. So that's, I think it's very, very clever. I quite enjoy traveling with them. I didn't really enjoy their previous business class, but the current one is very good.
No, I mean, they're definitely playing on 2 strengths. One, location. I mean, they really are in the middle of, between east and west. So they're able to capture traffic flows from north to south and east to west. And they're trying to play on that cultural hospitality and service and, play to that end of whether it's the, focus on food, because food is very important in the Turkish culture, and service. And so, I mean, they've done a phenomenal job. I mean, I don't know if there are any business books out there, but to take that airline in 20, 30 years from, I hate to say it, but maybe a disorganized state airline to what it is today, it's pretty amazing.
Have you flown them, Alex? I'm not sure.
I've never flown.
That's one of the airlines you can fly now.
I've never. Well, see, no, that's a great point. I've never. No, I mean, again, I was blinded by loyalty. I've been to Istanbul several times for work, and I've always thought, no, thank you. I'd rather fly on a 32-year-old 767 with BA, please, with the CRT monitors at the front showing reruns of The Office, than go on a beautiful airline. But I was thinking when you were talking about it at the beginning of the episode that I've always been fascinated by airlines hiring other airlines to come in and help them from an operational perspective. It's not new, especially when you're going from exactly what you described, from a state or quasi state run operation to something more commercial. It's part of the stuff that my dad's done when he was in Angola. That was an Emirates thing. Emirates do a lot of this. Surprisingly, they did Angola. They did Sri Lankan. They've done a few others, but it makes total sense, doesn't it? Instead of looking around at each other going, well, let's hire, who are the flying guys? The Air Force? Yeah, they probably know how to run the airline. Let's bring them in. Go to somebody who is not obviously going to be a direct competitor, but can give you some operational wherewithal. And how, I don't know if you're allowed to talk about this, but how involved were they? Did they sort of take the reins, or was it an advisory thing? I'm fascinated by this.
Well, at the time when I was there, they sent down teams. So there was like a team focused on the commercial planning, the network, scheduling. There was another team, kind of revenue management, reservations, that end of it. There was a team that I work with that was more focused on flight ops and OCC and technology. So they sent down experts in different areas. And SAS is one of many airlines that does this. You've heard Lufthansa. There's Lufthansa Consulting. So there's airlines out there that kind of make this a business to go out there. And Emirates, obviously, the example that you gave. From my experience, at least at Turkish, they would kind of show you the best practices that walk you the path of this technology can do this for you. But then ultimately, it was up to the board and the Turkish managers to kind of accept it or reject it. Obviously, there was pressure from above that, hey, guys, we got to modernize, we got to move forward, we're got to be much more commercially minded. So listen to what these guys what the SAS is telling you. Don't necessarily blow them off saying, hey, we've been doing this for the last 20, 30 years, so let's just stick with it. So, but no, they had a whole team over there.
Otherwise, you end up like Olympic Airways and you basically go bankrupt.
Well, history is littered with all of those state airlines that failed to make the leap, either because they didn't want to or because they didn't do exactly what you described, and they just became a kind of chapter in history.
I think one of the airlines, even two airlines that we can cite in that to come on to your comment, Alex, is that are in the defining moment. One is Ethiopian, obviously, which or Rwanda Air actually could be, that seem to be going well. I keep seeing them on some routes I'm looking for later this year. I'm thinking maybe one day I should do Addis Ababa as a layover. I don't know. But the other one, I'm mentioning it because I've been recently, obviously, is Saudi, because they're clearly trying to keep up or at least catch up with the likes of Emirates and Qatar. Do they actually want to catch up? But they want to be a much bigger airline because they want to drive more traffic towards Saudi Arabia. They're clearly a state-owned entity, and they will have to let go. Maybe I've never flown them, so I'm not judging. I'm just saying they probably will have to let go of some of their practices that are very state-owned oriented type of companies, like you just said, because otherwise they will not be able to go and to make that step towards a more commercially based and customer-focused airline. And again, I've never traveled. I'm not saying they're not customer focused. I don't know. Maybe they're very good. I've never flown them.
Oh, definitely. And then you don't need somebody to come in for, years on years. When I was there, I think SS was there maybe 2 years or maybe even less. But they had a whole team there, and over at least a year, they gave you, the building blocks and heck of a lot of information. And, then the Turks kind of took it and ran with it. So I'm built upon that.
Have you been to the new airport in Istanbul?
No, it's opened I think it was opening as the tail end of, or as a pandemic, tail end, I think, of 2019, and then as a pandemic.
2019, yeah. I went, I think it just when it opened. It's mind-blowing, as in, it is so big. You're like, it wasn't completely finished in terms of it was finished, but you could see that there were still areas probably at some point there would be like a cafe or something, and they weren't there. So it gave even more this impression of like, wow, this is amazingly huge. And so they're really preparing for the future, which is something that we cannot always say about Heathrow. By the way, do you have a view on Heathrow?
It's one of those airports people love to hate, right? Well, my impression was it was a bunch of mazes that we had to go up and down, up and down. Border force wasn't too bad. It was actually pretty good. But then as soon as we got outside, the Heathrow Express train wasn't running that day because there was some works that they had to do. So then there's this massive queue for taxis, and Uber wasn't being very helpful either. So that was a little bit of drama getting into town.
Oh, yeah, I remember you told me.
And on the outbound, I kind of flew a mixed itinerary. I flew United into London. So I think that was their relatively new Terminal 2. So that arrival
Terminal
was okay.
2.
Departure at miles on American, so we came back on American, and I believe that's Terminal 3. That terminal was a little bit older, but trying to figure...
little bit older, that's another statement.
So anyhow, and I remember Heathrow well from my Virgin days. When I was at Virgin, I think it was in 91 or 92, they transitioned. They got with the new Bermuda 2 air service agreement, they were able to transition some of their flights to Heathrow from Gatwick. So back in those days, I'd been in and out of Heathrow quite a bit. So I was used to the tunnels and up these stairs, down these stairs, but it's not the most, I don't know, let's just say maybe travel-friendly airport.
User-friendly.
Especially if you have, I could see how it could be a problem for elderly folks or, families with kids. And, I had the family along too. And, little ones asking, how much longer? How much longer? I'm like, only another 10-minute walk, So.
But talking about that, obviously, LAX is also an airport that some people love to hate, right? I don't know. Alex, what do you think in general about LAX? We had it, by the way, guys, we did it on episode 12, which was about in 2015
My God,
or something. Yeah. So what we said back then, I don't know if it's any relevance, and we want to hear about from the expert. But before I ask you, Hakan, Alex, do you like this airport? Because I know you've flown quite a bit.
I'm very fond of LAX for a number of reasons. The only part that I don't like is having to drive anywhere near it, especially on World Way. But the airport itself, I'm a massive fan of. I haven't been. I mean, to be completely frank, I haven't been a passenger out of LAX that often. Maybe 20 or 30 times in my life. Maybe a little bit more than that.
That's more than me.
But there's so many redeeming features for me, not just in and out, but also just I think the scale of it and the amount of from an AV geek perspective anyway, just the breadth of carriers that come in and the types of airplanes, and it's just constant. There's something awe-inspiring about that airport.
So Hakan,
You've been in the bowels.
you have a storied experience with it because you've seen it also evolve in years, and it has changed a lot, and it's still changing. Actually, it will keep changing. So, first of all, do you like it? And then maybe tell us about that airport.
No, I mean, it's definitely an airport that some people hate to, they hate, and others, love it. It depends, I think, where you're coming from. The current terminal concept came up in the early 60s at the dawn of jet age. And at that time, they had these satellite terminals. They were standalone terminals, and the major airlines, each major airline of the day kind of got their own satellite terminal. And the idea was everything was supposed to be self-contained. And the airport has that horseshoe roadway that goes in and out of it.
Yeah.
And the idea was we want to create the shortest distance between the curb and the terminal gate. So it was supposed to be easy in and out. Of course, LA being such a car culture, that was one of the focuses. And also the LA being on the edge of the United States, nobody considered it being a connection airport. It was always meant as an origin and destination airport where people either fly from or people come to. And even today, I mean, it's the number one airport globally as for in size wise of origin and destination. Over 80%. I think last number I saw was like 82% of the travelers are either originating or arriving into Los Angeles as their destination. So it's not a lot of connections are being performed there.
I didn't know that. That's interesting.
So it's not like a Dallas or an Atlanta where maybe more than 50% of your traffic is connecting somewhere beyond. But I mean, the airport, traces its way back into the 20s. There was actually airfield where they used to host air races. Back in the day, just like car racing, they used to have air races of airplanes flying in circles. It didn't have its first commercial traffic until after World War II. Prior to that, the major airports in Los Angeles were Burbank, and there was also a place called Glendale Air Terminal, which doesn't exist anymore, which is where the first Transcom planes and the DC-3s and stuff like that used to fly into. But, the airport's constantly going, quote unquote, through modernization projects and upgrades. Probably the biggest one was in the 80s leading up to the 84 Olympics when they put the upper level roadway in and they built the initial Tom Bradley International Terminal. Since then, various airlines have funded their own terminal upgrades, whether it's Terminal 4 American or Terminal 7-8 United. Right now, Delta's in the midst of a project. They're Terminal 2s and 3s. So there's nonstop projects. The Bradley Terminal was expanded further, and that's where you get that Star Alliance Lounge. That was in the mid-2010s. Only 2021 during the pandemic, they opened another West Gates, another portion of the Bradley Terminal, which is like a satellite concourse. They go underneath the taxiway to reach from the Bradley Terminal. So, there's more projects coming. They're looking at the 2028 Olympics as target for potentially a new Concourse Zero, which would be addition to Terminal 1 where Southwest is, and maybe a Terminal 9, which would be connect to United's Terminal 7 and 8. There's work being done constantly. I agree, getting in and out of the airport traffic-wise can be a nightmare, especially holidays when, as Angelinos, nobody likes to take public transportation. Everybody likes to hop in their own car and drive to the airport. Though there is, I guess, some good news coming. There is going to be a light rail connection from the MTA that's going to connect to the airport. So that's on the way. So for those that do want to take public transit, there'll be another option. And I mean, the airport I believe it's something like 3,000 acres. I mean, it's landlocked on 3 sides, and then you got the ocean on the 4th side. So it's 3,000 acres. And I mean, being in 2019, it was the 3rd busiest airport in the world with passengers, 80, I think 85, or I think it was a high 80s, 88, 89 million passengers for such a small airport. I mean, size-wise, it does amazingly. I mean, in comparison, I think Dallas is something like 6 times, Dallas-Fort Worth is something like 6 times the size in acreage. So, I mean, the airport does an amazing job for what it has. It's hard to build. It's like Heathrow, you're kind of landlocked, so you can only kind of adjust what you kind of have with. You can't start over and bulldoze everything, because then what are you going to do? So it's, I mean, definitely, I mean, it has its detractors, but I mean, the concept for the airport, even till today, is, let's get you from the curb to the gate as quick as possible. It gets harder and harder as these new terminals are built and they get larger and larger in size, but, it's kind of what they're looking for,
Yeah, I do have a weird soft spot for that airport. I think for every single reason that you've just listed. I mean, I love to go to Dockweiler Beach at the end of the runway, and just the water's always warm, and you're watching these planes launch over your head. I don't know. There's something quite romantic about that airport. The history. I mean, it is a pain in the rear end in many regards, and it feels like Heathrow, and it feels like O'Hare in many regards. That just bits are bolted on constantly throughout history. There's no flow. There's no any kind of constant theme that runs through it. But I don't know. I do like that airport.
No, and I think for an AvGeek, it's an incredible airport. I mean, we got something like 100 plus airlines serving the airport.
Yeah.
There's an incredible choice of destinations. You got In and Out, of course, on the north side. We got the Imperial Hill on the south side. There's also the Proud Bird restaurant. I don't know if you guys have been.
Place.
Exactly.
Yep.
So, I mean, there's...
I haven't. What? Come again, guys? What?
Yeah, this is great. It's on the, I guess it was southeast side, on the other side of Sepulveda, right?
Aviation Boulevard, yeah.
Aviation Boulevard, yeah. There's this restaurant complex with a bunch of old warbirds parked in it, and you're also at the end of one of the arrival runways, so you've got planes coming over you the whole time. You've got good food and beer, and it's a nice counterbalance to the In and Out.
I need to try that now.
No, definitely. And then I think for the customer too, I mean, I mentioned it before, why United and American, let's say, with the LAX is not a home hub per se. I mean, it's a lot of airlines like to call it a hub or a focus city, but it's not dominated by any single airline. So we have an incredible choice of airlines, choices, destinations, frequencies. So we're very lucky in that sense that we're not beholden. We have one local airline, and that's the one that you have to fly pretty much all the time. We have a lot of choices. That's why we end up with 100 plus airlines serving it. And it's being the second largest city in the U.S., obviously, it's a lot of interest from foreign carriers, Asia Pacific in particular, and Latin America.
I suppose you can really go to LA and go, I want to go to this country, and it's not out of the realms of possibility. You can get there in probably no more than 2 flights. And as you say, the Latin American connection. I mean, from the Bay Area, if you want to go south of Mexico, you go through LA or Miami. But for a lot of South America, LA is the gateway to that. Which I mean, I can't think of an airport that has that breadth of destination. I wonder where they rank. I don't even know if there is a ranking of most destinations served by a single airport, but LAX has got to be up there.
And also because of the distance both from Asia and from Europe, in terms of what you were just saying about the type of aircraft, you have a lot of 380s because Lufthansa was going with the 380s, Air France used the 380, BA used the 380, Asiana used the 380. So you get the 380, which is not always seen in the US. So you have really a breadth of different birds to see as well, which I enjoyed last time from the In and Out. Was quite. I wish we had something like that in the UK. It's one of the best views you can have. So yeah, no, So do you? Because for you it's an origin and destination airport. Do you like it yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I know my way around, definitely. I have a badge also, so I can sometimes not necessarily cut through or jump through security or anything like that, but I mean, I know my way around. I'm in there working also because I have clients down at LAX, so I'm there on a regular basis, so whether I like it or not, I'm always got to be there too. But no, for travel, I mean, I like it. I mean, for the most part, a lot of airlines have invested in newer terminals, so it looks a little bit better. There's new lounges, whether it's the United Polaris Lounge or American Flagship Lounge. They've invested in lounges. There's the Bradley Terminal with its nice international lounges. I guess Qantas just reopened their. They have their 2 One World lounges. There's what's the top level of One World, Emerald or Emerald.
Yeah.
So there's an Emerald lounge there that's run by Qantas. So that's nice with dining, service, and all that. So there's some nice lounges. And I mean, if you like to shop at the airport, which some passengers do from some parts of the world, there's a bunch of shopping, especially at the Bradley terminal. Of course, as a local, I would never buy anything at the airport since everything is overpriced. But I mean, it gets me in, gets me out. I mean, I know kind of like I got employee parking, so I'm able to park and get in and out myself too. So some areas I know, you take the shuttle here, you take the shuttle there, or you walk out this door and you can save yourself a bunch of time, or you go through this door. And so, I mean, these are not necessarily things that everybody would know, but I mean, I make it in and out. All right.
In and out. Well played.
There you go.
That was good.
Double.
It was kind of fun. I mean, when we first started Virgin America and we were still based in New York, the airline was originally going to be based out of LAX. And then I think somebody must have written a very large check for us to move to San Francisco because operationally it was a stupid thing to do. But we were going to be in what is now, I think, the Square Enix, the Japanese video game software company, their building, which is in the southeast corner of the airfield. So it would have been the best views. Not that we didn't have great views where we were, but every time I go to LA, I look at that building and go, that could have been where I worked. And now they make video games.
One of my clients has an office on Century Boulevard, and they're up on like the 10th floor. So I mean, they're looking. It's like on the tower. They're looking down on the runways on the south side. So, cool. So whenever I'm over there, it's like, let's have a seat next to the window so I can watch everything go by on the background.
Yeah. Oh man.
Well, it's good that you didn't get bored from watching because you started your introduction about talking about how as a kid you were go earlier to before a flight to see the aircraft and collecting. So basically you're still the same.
That is true. 50 years later, hasn't changed.
Yeah, we do the same. I'm also going super early when I go still, I have a flight coming up at the end of the month. I'll probably go way too early for no reason whatsoever. And I actually even added a layover that makes no reason whatsoever. But I added the layover so I can be in another airport. Yeah. And I'm just going in Europe, by the way. I'm going to Athens via a layover, which makes zero sense. But yeah, because I just like it. If I cannot tell you. Maybe I needed my fix or something.
It's definitely a sickness.
Yeah.
It's a bad habit that I'll happily take.
Amen.
You said you traveled a lot. We talked about it just earlier. Do you have any very memorable flights? That's a question we ask all our guests, whether it's for a good reason because it was amazing or something extraordinary happened, or maybe for a bad reason because the service was the crappiest you've ever seen. Or you can quote multiple.
Well, I'll say that's not necessarily a flight I was trying to make. I was how about I give you this story? I was
Go ahead.
I want to say this was in the late 2000s. I had a gig in Boston, so I flew in for a meeting early in the morning. It was a red eye from the West Coast. I go to the meeting. Now, I know it's supposed to start snowing in Boston by like that evening, which is fine. I had a flight like 3 o'clock back to the West Coast. Meeting ends, hop on, get out to the Boston airport, check in. Everything's fine. No snow yet. As I'm waiting in the lounge, it just starts snowing heavy. Next thing we know, flight's a little bit delayed. The inbound plane didn't land. It diverted. Okay, we're going to try to swap airplanes for you. Before you know it, Boston Airport's like snowed in. I was stuck in Boston for 3 days.
Oh, no.
It was one of these massive nor'easter storms. And like the first so many hours, we couldn't get a hotel. Then finally, there's another passenger said, "Oh, there's whatever the brand hotel was it in the back bay. Let's figure out how to get there." We go downstairs, try to find a shuttle van to get to the hotel. Nobody wants to take us. Finally, we find somebody with this big Econoline Ford van that's like almost like slipping and sliding, trying to make it. So I kind of hang out at the hotel. The second day or the third day of the hotel, when we're about to leave, the hotel's running out of food and half their employees didn't show up to work. Finally, we make it to the airport like 3 days later, and we fly out. But boy, that was an unexpected layover in Boston that I was not planning on. Of course, since I was only thinking I was going to be there for about 1 day and have that quick meeting, I didn't have much extra clothes with me.
Oh, no.
And good, where are you going to go find everything when the city's basically closed down because of a snowstorm? So, I'm kind of hanging out in the hotel room with my, T-shirt and not much else. So, just so that was a little bit of an adventure.
Wow.
And the sad part is, I've had to go back to Boston every time, but there's like, a nice place and everything like that. But there's like this negative thing in my head as a result of that.
When is the snow going to start?
Yeah, it's like, can we pick another city instead of Boston? Can I go somewhere else?
Did you ever get snowed in, Alex?
Yeah, I don't think actually I've been snowed in. I've been delayed for 12 hours because of a technical issue while it also happened to be snowing, but the snow was never I don't think the root cause.
Same here. I was, no, not the snow. No, it was always an airline fuck up. Pardon my French, but it was not the snow. Then they can of course argue that the snow was an element, but it was clearly not. But I was. Yeah, maybe because in Europe we know how to deal with the snow. Not in the UK. I'm talking Nordics.
Well, one of the things that they're able to do in the Nordics, I don't know if you know, but they have like heaters on the runways and taxiways.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it melts the snow. It's kind of incredible.
I noticed that when I was up there, whenever it was a couple of weeks ago, that the taxiways and the ramp and the runways were all, even as the snow kind of came down, not so much in Oslo, but certainly in Stockholm, it was clear as anything. And I thought, I bet I know why. And a little Googling, of course, and sure enough, yeah, they've got the heated room. I'm going back up there on Wednesday. I'm going to Stockholm. So if it's snowing, I'm going to be like, hey, look. And no one is going to care that's sitting next to me.
Who are you flying with this time?
Norwegian. Aha.
Oh, nice. That's a story for our next episode then. Wow. The post Norwegian.
Post Norwegian. Yeah, whatever they want to call themselves. They're just passing that brand around.
Norwegian. Yeah, they have like two aircrafts. No, I'm kidding, of course. But they only have 737s, right?
That one does, yeah. That Norwegian. The other Norwegian is now called Norse.
Yeah, no, I know. We talked about it. So yeah, they let go of all the Dreamliners. Oh, there you go. Well, that's interesting. Another airline. Yeah. Any other stories you want to share?
Well, not necessarily flights. When I worked at Virgin, I had tons of stories of incidents and events happening with whether it's, okay, fine, you want to hear one? We'll give you one. How about this one? It's a well-known male celebrity. He has a house in Los Angeles and he has a house in London, and he's flying Virgin one night. And he gets dropped off at the curb of the airport. We know he's coming, so I have an agent out there to meet him. And literally all he's traveling with is a T-shirt, jeans, a sweater, and passport. It doesn't have anything else on him. Fine, he's rich. He's got houses on both ends. He doesn't need to travel with anything. He walks in the terminal, and at that time we're at Terminal 7, which is the United Terminal, and we use the United Red Carpet Club. Well, for some reason, our flight was slightly delayed. He didn't want to go to the lounge. And next thing I know, I get a call from the agent who's escorting him through the terminal. Says he wants a hamburger, but he has no money. I'm like, oh my! So I have to run up and find him, and I think it was Burger King line or something like that. He's standing in line at Burger King trying to get a burger. Had to loan the man like $20 so he can get his burger. So, I mean, it's like, some incredible stuff. And, just like anybody else, he sits down there, has his burger, and, then it's like, sir, what do you want to do? You want to go to the lounge? He's like, no, I'll just walk around. And he goes to, the shop and reads magazines and stuff like that. But I mean, it was just amazing how some of these folks traveled. While you have another celebrity, I'll say it was a famous female singer, and she shows up literally like with a van outside and has like 20 trunks of luggage and stuff like that. So we go from like one extreme of a guy basically traveling with only his passport in his pocket, and another one with 20 trunks worth of Louis Vuitton trunks with all types of clothing and God knows what else in there. So it's a lot of stories, and it's things like that. They said, nah, let me deal with the boxes instead of the passengers. Even though you got to be very adaptive and very flexible when you're at when you're dealing with customers, but it was sometimes too many stories.
I'm guessing you didn't get that $20 back.
No, I never got that $20 back. And then actually, what I did get once was, I mean, I don't know, it keeps happening to celebrities. A celebrity lost her passport. And I mean, a lot of celebrities, their real names are different than what they're known as in the industry. So apparently her passport was found by somebody in the ladies' bathroom, and it got turned into lost and found. And of course, we're looking for this lady's passport, but everyone's thinking her name is the celebrity name. So, and Lost and Found was holding onto her passport the whole time and had it like an hour before departure. But they're like, oh, no, we have no passports by that name or anything like that. But, so good Samaritan had turned it in only 15 minutes prior, but nobody put two and two together at the airport. So the celebrity then is like, okay, can we make some phone calls? Can we put you on the airplane? Will they let you into the UK because you are a UK citizen without your passport? And eventually, they let her go, and then the next day, we discovered, Lost and Found had her passport anyway. So we ended up, at that, I think DHL or whatever was available at that time, we ended up sending it to her. And the next time she came through the airport, I mean, she was super nice to everybody, and thanking everybody for the extra efforts we made to get her on board the airplane. And
that's nice.
She invited us. She's also the owner of or partner in a restaurant here in Los Angeles, and she invited the entire Virgin staff, about 20 employees, to come and dine and drink and have a good time one night just for that. So
wow, that's refreshing.
Yeah.
Yes, I was about to say the same.
Definitely.
That's nice.
Wow.
See, non-boxers can be nice too.
That's true. It could pay off. Though I think working at the airport, I've always gotten appreciation for it. Just try to be nice to, when you're dealing with agents. And I mean, I see it right now. One of my clients is actually a ground handler. And I mean, these employees, they're not, making a lot of money. They're trying to do their best. It's not their fault half the time, or 99% of the time that something's not working, whether it's an IT system or the airline is delayed. Just try to maybe put yourself in their feet for a little bit, and just, even as frustrated as you might be, just try to step back, take a deep breath, and just explain your problem, and calmly. And a lot of them, if they can try to help you, they will try to help you. So
I fully agree with that.
Amen. Yeah, I'm a big believer in that.
Yeah. It's something that I really despise when I see someone talking down to an employee in any setting. That's really, I judge people by how they treat other people. So, yeah. Oh, yeah. Turkish. You told me the story in London, and I kind of hooked it a few episodes ago. That flight with Turkish departing from Jeddah. Can you tell the story?
No problem. This was...
He's been talking about this since you guys got together.
Obviously, it was one of the Hajj flights. And during the Hajj, these customers, they collect their holy water. So they got their jugs of holy water, I believe, as you mentioned on the podcast. And another thing they do is they collect rocks and pebbles. And apparently these rocks and pebbles are part of the ceremony. They're supposed to be thrown to get rid of the devil. And some of the passengers also bring the rocks back home with them instead of just leaving them in Saudi Arabia. So this needs to be accounted for in the weight and balance, the added weight of water and the added weight of rocks. So this A310 one day takes off out of Jeddah, chock-a-block full of pilgrims, headed to, I believe it was Istanbul. And on its way up through the Red Sea, the aircraft by HF contacts ops control, says we're not sure what's going on, but the aircraft is not performing as we expect. We're not unable to maintain the altitude that we're hoping for or planned. The fuel burns a little bit higher. But, otherwise everything seems okay, but we're going to keep going, but we're going to monitor and in the meantime, the maintenance teams are, trying to see what's going on. Well, it turns out the flight had to land short. It landed short in Antalya, basically, as soon as it crossed the Mediterranean, the first airport it got to, because the fuel burn was much higher and it just couldn't make Istanbul. The plane lands, everybody starts looking at what's going on here. They started looking at the weight and balance documents and everything. It turns out the added weight for the rocks was never calculated. The added weight for the water was never calculated. So the airplane basically was overweight than planned. So it couldn't maintain, whether it's supposed to be 370, it could never reach that altitude. And its fuel burn was much higher. So it's a little bit of a mistake that the handlers down in Jeddah made.
Right. Wow.
Do they actually count every single? Because I've seen, literally when I was doing that queue, I was like, what is all this? They all have these boxes and styrofoam, protecting whatever there was inside. I knew it was water on some because it was marked. I was like, do they actually weigh each, or do they make an average? I don't know.
Generally, for weight and balances, there's an average for normal weights. Like there's an average for an adult, a child, or some airlines go male, female, child, infant, and then there's an average weight for baggage, a piece of baggage. So you multiply those out by however many folks and how many pieces of baggage you have. I'm not quite sure how they do it on these Hajj flights, but there definitely needs to at that day, whether they use an average or passengers plus an average jug of water plus average amount of rocks. I don't know, but it was definitely not taken into account that day.
And that average is also depends on if that celebrity comes with an entire van full of luggage, right?
That's true. Well, at Virgin, I remember we actually that some airlines weighed the luggage and put it into the system of the actual weight of the luggage. Other airlines just use an average of just numbers of bags. So it can vary between airlines. This is going back to our discussion of how 20 different airlines could do the same procedure 20 different ways.
Is that still the case?
I don't know specifically for Virgin, but I know some customer airlines of the company I represented at LAX, they use average weight. So, if you check in 2 bags, they just assume it's whatever. But other ones, they and actually when you put it on the scale, he or she will input it. Okay, this one is, 20 kilos, this one's 12 kilos, and then they have a total.
I see. Okay.
Did you ever see this one, the story you told us about that Jeddah flight is peculiar, but did he ever, these variants in how they operate, did he ever lead to mistakes or approximations or stuff that if you had been the boss, you'd say, come on, guys, don't do it this way because it will obviously lead to an issue?
Not necessarily mistakes, but I mean, I think one of the issues is sometimes airlines, in my opinion, overcomplicate stuff. So it's harder to train staff if you've got procedures that are super, super complicated. Sometimes, keep it simple, stupid is, it works. I mean, as much as people want to throw rocks at, for instance, Southwest Airlines with their big meltdown, I mean, they were an airline that, kind of focus on keep their procedure simple, don't get too detail oriented. I mean, not per se detail oriented as it's a sloppy procedure, but just have something that you guys can mass produce, make it easy, make it do the same procedure over and over and over. So some airlines, especially, I mean, I won't name some airlines, but there's been some new startup airlines. There's one Asia Pacific startup airline that I think got every single airline's, probably the way they started is they collected every single airline's manuals and they kind of picked and choose between how this airline does it and how that airline does it. And what they came up with was, something almost a nightmare freakish procedure of how to do, for instance, a certain task when it could have been done so simple. But sometimes, I hate to say it, but in certain departments or certain positions, people end up in spots that not necessarily have the experience for it. So they try to look at how does airline A do it? How does airline B do it? How does airline C? Okay, I'll take a little bit from each one, but when you put it all together, it doesn't really make sense. So, And when you're dealing with particularly safety related issues, whether it's flight ops or weight and balance and some of these things, I mean, you don't want to deviate too far.
No.
I'm not going to ask you to name the airline, of course, but that really sounds like an airline that could be out of Japan.
I was thinking the same thing.
They love procedures and paperwork and rules and codes. So it could be that. I'm not going to say it's Zip Air. He never told me it's not that. I don't know. He might tell us after we end the podcast, which is going to be in about 10 minutes. So could be. Moving on. Do you... we had a discussion we had. I mean, earlier we discussed about the fact that it was probably a depressing thought for some of our listener about traveling less because of the use of these communication tools for us consultants. But how do you see, in general, more generally, the airline industry moving on? The numbers, current numbers, the U.S. domestic is basically back to 2019, like a 4% plus or minus. So it's very, very close. Globally, is 75%, I would say, and of course, it's dragged down by China, which just reopened, but they have a lot of new rules. I mean, a lot of countries now are imposing again the same stuff that we knew back in the day, like a COVID test and other stuff. And China actually itself, China is actually, I think, forcing outbound travelers to do a test as well. So that meaning that China is dragging down the global numbers, but Europe is about, I think it's also like probably 85% of what it used to be, in Africa or a little bit less, Middle East also 85%, and I think North America, so if you add as well Canada and Mexico, is maybe 95%. So we're very close. But it seems that not only the way we travel has changed, but who travels and how many times, etc., has changed. So what is your view, because you're inside the industry?
Well, I think that what you ended with is the pertinent piece here. I think that type of clients and how people are traveling has changed. I mean, I think there's no doubt that travel will come back, exceed 2019 numbers, but the big question seems to be, is the business traveler, are they going to be there? Are we going to be traveling as much for business? But the leisure travel has definitely roared back. And here in the U.S., what I don't necessarily like the term, but they keep talking about something leisure, a mix between business and leisure, where somebody might go for work 2 days and then they tack on the weekend and stay somewhere else. And at least here in the U.S., from what I've seen, and I see it in my own family and around colleagues and friends, a lot of people are working from home. I mean, it's a hybrid work model that they go in their office maybe 2 days a week, but the other 3 days they're able to work remotely. And I know people that have picked up, and I know somebody that moved to Colorado. They used to work here in California. They moved to Colorado to work from now on, and remotely they're able to do that. So I think the way we're living and we work is going to drive the way a certain percentage of the population travels, whether for leisure and for business. So, but internationally and globally, I think no doubt over time, I mean, the numbers will be exceeded because we all want to travel. People like to connect. People like to go see other cultures and places. So, I mean, what's your take?
Yeah, I think the work from home stuff is here to stay, and I'm a big proponent of that. But I think it's a difficult one, because the stuff you said at the top is also very true, that there's definitely a sheen that's been removed from travel, from air travel especially. It's not fun anymore, and that's coming from us as enthusiasts. We can see it. So what the vast majority of quote unquote normal people that travel and go, this is even worse than it always was, are they, and then you have things like the Southwest meltdown and strikes and things like that. I think people may look at some of the lessons they learned during COVID, look a little closer to home for that long weekend, look to alternative modes of transportation like trains here in Europe. But I don't think, again, to the points you made earlier in the episode, I don't think business travel is ever going to go. And I mean, you are case in point. You are the exemplar of that, with the amount that you have reduced your travel compared to 250,000 miles a year. So I don't see it ever going back. And I think for our kind of physical health, mental health, and the health of the planet, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, I don't actually think it's a bad thing.
No, I agree. My take is similar to both of you. I never say never, because there's always after. I mean, first of all, we have the crisis at the same time than this kind of post-COVID world. So there's been a recovery, and then now there was a global crisis. It might not last as long as we thought. Gas prices are back to where they were. We don't know, basically, right? That's not. And what to the point that Ed made in the previous episode about maybe needed to restart a machine as well. The airlines are also at fault here, guilty for having fired way too many people, and then now having difficulties to rehire them, especially with sometimes harsher conditions. So it's a difficult one. But however, let's see if I put myself in 5 years. I don't know, because there's always, like, you remember American Airlines CEO saying, we're never going to lose money ever again. there's always going to be a phase in the system where everybody's overconfident and over traveling. Maybe there's no such a thing of over traveling, but you know what I mean? Like I don't know. I agree, at least for sure, that the numbers are going to exceed what it was before, because I think a lot of people want to travel, and people keep getting wealthier, especially in emerging countries. So they will travel. That's the growth of APAC, and that's the growth in Africa that is going to be massive. So in numbers, absolute numbers, it's for sure. How long? When will it happen? I don't know. I hope for the airlines that they can keep recovering. Some are actually making money. You mentioned Turkish earlier. I really hope they do not forget that it has to be something still dreamy to travel. Yeah. It's something still hopeful, and it's something emotional. It's not just a means of transportation. I know when we say that in the US, it's often seen as taking the bus, but I still want it to be an experience that is a bit out of the ordinary, not just taking a bus. And I have nothing against buses, guys, but I don't know. So I hope it recovers. I don't think it's going to be this year. It was going to be close, but not this year. And business travel, yeah, maybe, I don't know. We'll see. Oh, we get to travel. Will you get to travel, Akan, do you think? A little bit more this year, a little bit less, or the same? Do you have any forecast for your own travels?
I mean, honestly, I'd like to travel a little bit more, but I mean, it's dependent on what business is doing and I mean, what my clients want. I mean, for family, yeah, we're planning a few family leisure trips where, do what the wife wants and whatever the little one wants. So we'll be doing that. I mean, I think I'll travel a little bit more, but it's certainly nowhere close to pre-COVID days. And also one thing, and Alex touched on it with train travel, one thing I'm seeing is with companies with their ESG goals, everyone's, jumping on this bandwagon that we have to, do something. And one of the easiest ways for companies to meet their ESG goals is reduce travel. It's pretty simple. So, with the CFOs, looking at reduced overall spend, here's another quote unquote easy win for a lot of companies to just reduce travel, and we get a bunch of green points for it.
You're not wrong. I will say, however, it's a bit striking because you work mostly with the airline industry. So we'd think, Alex and I did, you'd be the one traveling because, the travel industry will say, but you need to travel because part of our DNA to have to travel. And you're not, which is, I don't know what it says actually, but it's...
I mean, some airline corporate offices are still not fully manned, and some corporate offices are, they've let a good portion of the staff work remotely. So yes, airlines want you to on board the airplane, but I think they're also adjusting to the reality that the workplace is shifting. I mean, we were probably headed this way pre-pandemic anyways, but the pandemic just created this huge, maybe leap to change of work.
Yeah, I don't want to end up on this because I mean, it's we need to be hopeful. For work, yes, but for leisure, I mean, Japan is because you said at some point that we would like to go back, and you were working there like I was very often. I haven't been back, as you know, guys. I hope to go this year. I'm going to use, one of these programs that I'm leaving because I'm a free agent. I'm going to bankrupt my miles on one. I'm going to say, a very nice flight because the prices are horrendous. I don't know how it is from LA, but the price is very, very expensive to Japan, which shows that a lot of people are willing to go back. And Shin, whom Alex, is telling me that basically looks like 2019. Clearly it's not, but when you see it in numbers where there was, I think, 2.5 million monthly visitors in Japan in 2019. It's probably already like at least half of it. And you know how it is. We don't, as humans, we cannot make the difference between 1 and 2 million. I mean, if there's people, there's people. So people want to travel. So I hope this finish on something a bit more happy, more hopeful that we will keep traveling. You will keep actually have content for this show because, guys, if you're not traveling, how can we keep talking about aviation on this podcast? There's no way.
No, I mean, definitely. I do want to travel. I want to try the new ANA product. I want to try the updated Qatar suites. I mean, there's stuff I want to get back to, Cathay Lounge in Hong Kong.
You haven't tried Qatar. You're like Alex.
No, I have tried Qatar. I've flown them that's why they're probably one of my more favorite airlines. I really like their product. I like the ground service. I like their dine on board, when it's like a restaurant, you kind of you pick and choose what you want. So I love that concept. So, I mean, but I want to try their new their their new suite, I guess that they have. So
Q suite. So you haven't done it. Oh, that Q suite is something. He's tall because I've met him and we were next to each other. So it's maybe not the best seat for taller people. But even if I'm tall, I still love that Q suite, man. It's just like I hesitated to use it to go to Dubai in February. Ended up using Emirates just because of that. But it made no sense in terms of pricing because everything is very expensive for Europe right now. But otherwise, it's a fantastic product. ANA. I think our friend Joseph, Alex, has done it. The new ANA.
I think he has.
Business
Yeah.
seat. That looks freaking fantastic.
And if I do a trip to Scandinavia, I'm thinking, I want to catch that new Finnair seat also. Check that out.
See,
Yeah, that weird seat. Yeah.
So I mean, it's hopeful. I mean, there's things we want to do that we're looking forward to.
There you go. There you go. So do you know where you're going to fly? This is usually our question that we end up with, and then I'll play the music. Do you know where you're going to fly next? Where is your next flight? Hakan?
Work, I'm not 100% sure. Spring break, which is coming up in end of March here, when there's no school, either Hawaii, which is a very frequent destination for Californians, so that's a relatively easy hop for us. Or if the other side of the family wants to go skiing. So who knows? Maybe I can find some snow in late March in Utah or Colorado. So we're negotiating and working on options.
You're not going to say on record what you prefer because you want to make the wife happy. So. Alex, you just told us you're going to...
Stockholm and then Stockholm to Paris.
I think we're going to miss each other.
Yeah, by hours.
Because I'm doing the layover is in Paris. I really want to hurt myself doing a layover in Paris and staying overnight. I'll explain that, next episode, whenever that is. And I'm flying Air France, actually.
Me too.
Oh, wow. So there you go. But I think...
Just miss each other, yep.
Or I'll be stuck in the terminal because it happens often in Paris, and I'll see you for a croissant. So, Hakan, you know what you need to do. You need to find a flight of Air France and come to Paris also at the end of the month. So we're all going to be stuck with some strike, but at least they'll have good croissant and coffee.
Fantastic.
Right? There you go. Where is the end music? I'm going to put... Oh, yeah, and before we do that, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks so much for your time. This is a pleasure.
No, thank you guys. Big thank you. And you guys, through your podcast, I think provide a valuable entertainment service and, and educational too. I mean, I've learned stuff through you guys. And it's, as I said, you guys have been part of a lot of my travels internationally in my years as I walk around different towns and cities. So I greatly enjoyed it. And thank you for having me.
All right, thank you.
That's very kind. We provide education. Alex, we're teachers now.
I liked entertainment.
Yeah. Me too, the internet bit. Let me play the music and talk over it anyway. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
But I don't see. Are we? It's a very nice compliment you're doing us because we seem to be learning from you all the time. Yeah. I don't think we can teach you anything.
Don't worry, I'm sure there's a lot. There's always room to learn. Agreed.
Anyway, everyone, have a safe January. We'll be recording somewhere in, I guess, end of January or early Feb, with Alex going to the Nordics, to Stockholm, and then going to Paris, and me being stuck in Paris and meeting Alex there for a croissant. And I'll send a private flight to get Hakan so we can meet the three of us in Paris. How to not bet start 2023. Thank you, Hakan. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you, guys. Safe travels.
Merci.
Happy flying.